Hello and welcome to part 2 of the EFL Fantasies Championship preview. My name is Jamie.
My name is Angus.
My name is Dan.
And of course you are listening to the EFL Fantasy Podcast. So by now you should have listened to part 1. If you haven't, I do advise you to go and listen to that. This episode we're going to be previewing another 8 teams. So we might as well get straight into it, haven't we?
Yeah, people know who we are and what we're doing, so
Yeah,
nothing else to
I'm not very
explain.
good at these intro things, but could get completely lost. But we'll get straight into it. And the first team. Oh, actually, before we do, those on YouTube can see there's a big subscribe button. If you could just go and press subscribe, that would help us out massively, or even leave us a like. I'm going to start asking for that at the beginning of every episode now.
Yeah, and I've got one more thing we need to do.
Oh, go on.
Timestamp it.
Yes, it is the 28th of July, Friday night, 25 past 9 at night. So we're recording basically now. If anything's happened since this comes out, which should be Saturday night,
Saturday.
Angus.
Saturday night, yeah.
So within 24 hours, don't blame us. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Right, perfect. Right, those who've listened to part 1, we're going to do exactly the same format. We're going to go through the key questions we asked our correspondents, and then we'll have a breakdown of their teams. So, Dan, I'm going to come to you first because we're going to preview one of the promoted sides. It's Plymouth Argyle. Last season, they came first in League One. Bookies have them down for 23rd, coming in around 28-1. So, first one, who's give us the information, Dan?
Yeah, it's Outlier FPL. So thank you, Outlier. Key outgoings.
Excuse me, Dan. I ask, and then you tell me. Okay?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Key outgoings, please,
Otherwise,
Dan.
what does Jamie offer?
Yeah, what do I offer then? If anybody's listened to the Planet FPL episode, which is out now, I got asked about the rules, and I thought he was on about the bonus. And then when you started talking about, 2 points for half clean sheets, it's like, well, obviously I know that, but I look very stupid now, which isn't the first time. But yeah, key outgoings, please, Dan.
Yeah, Neil Ennis, who's joined Blackburn on a free, and Finney's, he's not come back from it. He's not come back after his loan spell.
Okay, key incomings.
The big two, Barley Mumba, who was excellent for him at wing back last year. He signed from Norwich, and Morgan Whittaker, who spent the first half with Plymouth and then got recalled by Swansea because it looked like they were going to sell him, and then they didn't. But yes, Plymouth ended up re-signing them both just a few days ago. We then have Kesler Hayden's coming on loan. He's another wing back. Pluswago, centre back, was highly rated, was at Arsenal youth. And they've also brought in Gibson on loan, Lewis Gibson on loan from Everton.
Okay, sorry, I'm just messing with my camera. I've gone dead blurry. And I've also been distracted because Hamburg have just scored a fifth in the 98th minute. Right, so what is the likely lineup of formation, Dan?
He's basically put down two, because at times last year they played a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-2-1. So if they play 4-3-3, he's put Hazard in goal, which is interesting because he's a 4 million goalie. But Cooper, who is number one, has an injury at the minute.
I got excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it might be a fairly long-term injury. He's got Edwards and Kesler Hayden at fullbacks with Scar and either Pluswago or Gibson partnering him. They've got midfield three of Houghton, Randall, and Is it Charlie Wright? I can't remember. There's two Wrights.
Callum.
I just meant
Callum
to
Wright.
C right, and he's 0.5 more than T right.
Yeah, I think he's an attacking midfielder. And then the front three is Barley Mumba, who's obviously a defender in the game, Morgan Whittaker, and he reckons Hardy will play up front, who's 5 million.
So he's got Mumba in the front three.
Yeah, in the 4-3-3,
Oh,
he
which he
reckons
got
he'll play on the
promoted to
wing.
Plymouth, not Norwich.
Yeah.
He's 5.5.
And then if they play a 3-4-2-1, Hazard would be in goal. The back three would be Sarr, Plasuego, and Gibson. Kessler Hagen and Mumba would be. Oh, sorry, Kessler Hagen or Edwards would be the right wing back, and Mumba would be the left wing back.
Okay.
And then Houghton and Randall would be centre mid. And then the two behind would be Callum Wright with Whittaker with Hardy up front. So that it, yeah, so yeah, I think it could be interesting to see what formation they go to against different opponents.
These ones, like the promoted teams, are my favourite to do when you do the likely lineups and formations. Because as someone who didn't watch any League One at all, you know, a lot of the players are completely new to me. I've never even heard of them. So actually having them basically spout out to me, like as in formation wise, is quite handy, to be honest. What league position does Outlier think they'll finish?
17th.
Oh, very optimistic. And best Gaffr assets?
He's put down two. He's put down Barley Mumba. I know he's 5.5, but if he's playing on the wing, could be pretty decent. And Morgan Whittaker as well at 6 million.
He's an interesting one, Whittaker for me. We'll talk about him in a second. Where are we now then? Budget assets.
He's put down two. Connor Hazard until Cooper comes back from injury, which could be in October. So it's all right, isn't it? He's going to be maybe first choice for a while, so probably lean for him.
Be fantastic. He's going to sit there on the bench. May come on for Dieng if Dieng doesn't play forever, and then if Cooper does come in, he can sit on the bench for a little bit longer. I'll wait for Jeepers Keepers, and then I'll make my move then. So that sounds perfect to me, Dan.
Yep. And then he's also put Ben Wayne, the 4.5 million forward. He said we've only got him and Hardy up top at the moment. So if no more strikers come in, he'll get game time.
What about Whittaker?
I think he thinks he plays either out wide or in one of the 10s.
Okay, interesting. So Hardy or Wayne is likely to be the 9.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would go there with, especially in Gaffr. I wouldn't go that cheap for a goalie.
No. Okay.
For a striker, sorry.
Under the radar assets.
He said Barley Mumba. He said he could do well, especially if he plays in a front three. But like you mentioned, Jamie, being priced with Norwich at 5.5, I'm not sure about that.
It's not in. Right, we're going to break down the team anyway, so we might as well start there. And I'm going to come to you first, Angus, because you've been waiting. 5.5 then for Muamba. Is it Mumba or Muamba? Because there's no
Mumba.
A, just Mumba. Right. 5.5. If he did play in a front three, do you think he's worth it?
Possibly. I think what really depends for me is what they're like defensively. Because, I think particularly whether he's playing wing back or in a front three, I think he could be interesting. But if they're like a sieve defensively, it's not going to be worth it. Where at least if they're sort of remotely solid and then he's getting forward, whether it's from wing back or in a front three, like he's still expensive for a Plymouth defender, but you can sort of justify it better if they're sort of, competent.
Yeah. And then quickly before we go back to Dan, the goalkeeper situation. Hazard 4 million with Cooper injured. Does that interest you if you're going down the Dieng and a 4.0 keeper?
Yeah, so for those who have listened to the Planet FPL episode, I said I've got two 4.5s. For the record, the other one for me is Fisher at Swansea. But if Hazard is going to start the season in goal, that will change.
And Dan, their defence in general, anybody interest you there? Because you got Mumber at 5.5, but the rest of them are all at 4.5, other than Early, who's 4.
Yeah, I've had Kessler Hayden, who's just Kessler in the game. We never saw the best of him at Huddersfield last year, but he's from his previous loans down lower down the period. He's done quite well and been quite attacking. So I think maybe if he's playing, especially in like a wing back, then I think he might be a good option or an option.
So if they went to the alternative formation then and played the two wing backs with Mumber at left wing back, you think Kessler's a better option at 1 million cheaper?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Midfield, Angus. We've got Seawright, because I'm definitely going to forget his name's Callum, and call him Chris or Charlie or something. So we'll go Seawright, 5.5. Randall, T-Wright, and Miller at 5. And then Houghton and Butcher at 4.5. Is there anybody interesting there?
I know Callum Wright did decently for them, particularly in terms of creating chances. I think he's another set piece taker. I'm not 100% on that though. So he's potentially one, particularly at 5.5. Below that, I think you're picking one like for the sake of picking one that cheap or whatever. I don't think it's necessarily sort of where I would go personally.
Okay, and then down the forwards, so they've got 3 listed: Whittaker at 6, Hardy 5.5, and Wayne at 4.5. What are your thoughts on those 3? And Plymouth is an attacking team.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We've gone through on episode 1 some of the Ipswich strikers. I think they'll probably do a bit better if we find out who's first choice. And you've also got Semedo from Sunderland as well at 6 million. So I'm finding it hard to go for Whittaker or Hardy at the minute.
And this is the question for both of you rather than just the one. What are your thoughts on Plymouth in general? As in, do you think they can stay up, or do you think they're going to struggle and be down there for most of the season?
I think they'll probably be down near the bottom, but I certainly think they're capable of, whether they stay up or not, I think they have a chance of it, but I think they'll certainly give it a good go. I'm seeing them sort of in the mould of Rotherham last year, never quite away from it, but, have enough about them to stay up.
It's like you read my mind then, Angus, because what I was going to ask you is, some people are new to the Championship, so they don't even know some of the Championship team. Some of them are like me, nothing about the League One teams. I was going to ask you to compare them to a side. And I was thinking, would you say someone like Rotherham? And you did, so that answers that for me. Dan, what are you thinking?
Yeah, pretty much along the same lines of Angus. I think people forget that they did win the league. They did finish above Ipswich. I know some of the data wasn't as standout as Ipswich, whereas they won a lot of games on fine margins, and you start to wonder if they go up a division, do they start drawing games or losing games by the odd goal? But I was a little bit worried until they signed Mumber and Whittaker back, but I think they'll be competitive, and I think they've got a chance of staying up. I personally would have them staying up currently.
Okay, very interesting. Right, we're going to move on to the next team then. And this one is Cardiff City. And Dan, you're going to talk us through Cardiff. So we'll start straight away with who actually provided the information.
Yeah, it's Call for FPL on Twitter. He's a massive Cardiff fan, so I'm intrigued to see what he's got to say, because Cardiff are a team I've not really been looking at.
Yeah, so last season they finished 21st. Bookies have got him down for 19th this season, coming in around 25-1. Who's Corf got down as the key outgoings?
Yeah, so they've lost Kip Ray, whose loan ended. I think he done quite good defensively. I think he went one of those centre backs that went under the radar. Cabra up front, who had a spell in our teams last year, went on a pretty decent goal scoring run, and I'm not sure if he's a key outgoing, but he's put Connor Wickham down.
Key incomings?
Well, the big one, isn't it? Aaron Ramsey's back at Cardiff, free from Nice. A lot of questions whether he can play 46 games, but even if he's fit for half of them, and even if he's sub for the other half, it's a bit of quality that not many teams in this league have. And with a team that struggled to score or even create chances last year, it could be a massive player for them.
Okay. Likely lineup of formation.
Oh, there's more Ian Cummins.
Oh, sorry, I thought you'd finished then.
No. Sorry, I got a bit excited about Ramsey. I thought I'll talk about him. We got Maytay on a free from Reading, Carlin Grant on loan from West Brom, Ugbo on loan from Troyes, and Gustas a centre back. So I think they're under restrictions by the EFL, so they can only sign frees or loans at the minute.
For some reason, I forgot that they signed off of them. Likely lineup of formation.
Yeah, so 4-3-3. He's got Allsop in goal, NG right back, Gutas and McGuinness centre back, with either Collins or O'Dowd at left back. The midfield three of Wintle, Rules and Ramsey, with Maite, Robinson and Carlin Grant through the middle.
That's a decent front three. And where's Corf predicted Cardiff to finish?
He reckons a mid-table finish, a step in the right direction, so between 12th and 14th.
Sounds reasonable. Best Gaffr asset 10.
He's put Callum Robinson at 7 million. And then also hopefully Carlin Grant, although he got priced when he was at West Brom, so he's 8 million. So that's a bit pricey, but he has had seasons where he's got close to 20 goals, even for like a Huddersfield side. So yeah, he did mention NG as well at 5.5.
Well, remember from our pre-season predictions last year, me and you were both quite big on West Brom. I had Colin Grant to be top goal scorer, so he did have it once upon a time. Budget's picked, Dan.
He's picked Ramsey at 6.5, which I think if he becomes like a regular starter, he'll be on set pieces and everything like that. So I can see why maybe he views 6.5 might be a bit of a budget.
Okay. And what about under the radar assets?
He's picked Collins, the left back. He said we didn't see enough because he got injured, but he likes to get forward from what he has seen. I think he's 5 million, whereas NG got priced at 5.5. So I can see why they were good defensively as well last year.
Okay, well we'll get into that now then. So Angus, we know Allsop's going to be number one, and he's coming at 5 million, so we won't spend any time talking about him. But regarding the defence, is there anyone that's caught your eye?
Not really. Everyone knows I love free kick wizard Perry and G. I don't think I'm going to go near him though, particularly at that price. Maybe Collins if he comes back and gets the left back role. Obviously, he had a bad injury last season, but he looked interesting before that. So, like, potentially, obviously that allows me to wait and see how Cardiff are doing. But then at 5 million, he could potentially be interesting.
Okay, Dan, do any of them interest you?
Defender wise, probably not. I would probably maybe keep Collins on the watch list, especially if he is as attacking as Corf says, and they are as defensively sound as they were again last season.
Would you
Could
not
be
pay
an
the
option at par.
0.5 more for NG? Though, if he's
Probably
going to
not.
be, is he going to be on free
No,
kicks now?
Don't think
no,
so
I
this
don't
time.
think so.
Right, okay, so they're out the window there. Midfielders then, Angus, obviously, Ramsey's the main talking point, 6.5. Former Arsenal player, Rangers player as well, actually, so you should be very fond of him. What are your thoughts on Ramsey? Do you think...
I mean, given that his most notable contribution to Rangers was missing the decisive penalty in the Europa League final, less fond of him in that context. Obviously, it's a massive thing. I mean, we joked last summer about the idea of Gareth Bale in Gaffr when there was all the rumours about him going to Cardiff. I think people trying to talk themselves into the idea of him going to Cardiff. The only debate with Ramsey is how many games he's going to play. I think we've seen even when he's played for Wales, he's still got something to offer. It's just whether you're willing to take the number of games he's going to miss along with that, as to whether you have him in your teams, I think.
What position are we likely to see him, Dan? Do you think if he's in a midfield three, is he going to be the central attacking player, or is he going to sit in either side as an 8?
I think they'd probably go 2 sitters and maybe give Ramsey the license, I'd guess.
Okay. And does he interest you at all?
He's a massive wait and see, and we need to see, can he play 3 games a week, and if he can't, he's not going to be an option unless we get one of these boosts. Maybe then, but I don't think I'd go there at the minute.
Okay. The rest of the midfield then, Angus. You got Marty in there at 6 million. He could be interesting, I think. O'Dowd, Ojo, Colwell, and Winter all at 5.5, and the rest coming in at 5 and 4.5. Is there anyone else that you think could potentially be an asset?
I mean, people who've listened for a while know I'm never far away from talking myself into Ruben Colwell. Won't be talking myself into him to start off with. Keep waiting for him to be a thing, and he isn't. But apart from that, like if it becomes even remotely a thing, I'll probably pick him. But Mate, another one who's obviously an injury risk. O'Dowd might be playing sort of full back. So there's not many that really appeal to me in the midfield, to be honest.
Okay, Dan, what about you?
Pretty much the same lines. I am intrigued with Mayte. If he can get any sort of fitness, he's done all right at this level. I remember him in the COVID season. Well, the season, when he had to play about 9 games. I think he scored 4 against Luton or 3 against Luton. So, I'm still haunted by it.
Season with Lucas Jow, wasn't he, when he was actually fit?
Yeah.
Every time he come back from injury, he looks a real option, and then he'd get injured again. So he's worth looking at. Forward line then, I think is interesting. Colin Grant going to Cardiff on loan. I know he is 8 million, but like you said at the beginning, Dan, there is potential there. And Robertson at 7 million could provide value. What are your thoughts on those two other forwards, Angus?
I mean, it's tough because we talk about those guys, and as you say, people have tortured memories from their time at West Brom. But there was a period in time where they were combining for goals for West Brom. So I guess the hope would be they sort of bring that back. So it won't be for me, but I do think people will sort of talk themselves into, I would imagine more so Robinson, obviously that cheaper price. I think people wanted to pick him even last season, but the problem was he moved on his West Brom price to Cardiff,
Yeah.
where obviously he's been priced up as a Cardiff player this time, and I think that will help some people go with him. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him in particular knocking around in a few teams. Won't be for me, but I could see him in a few teams.
And Dan, last thing on Cardiff, I think the issue of picking Cardiff players would be the opening fixtures. They've got Leeds away first game, they've then got QPR at home, but then they go away to Leicester before Sheffield Wednesday at home. So that those first two away games against two of the potentially best teams in the league isn't really ideal, is it?
No, I think they're a wait and see. Plus, they got a new manager who's never managed in the Championship either, so we're not quite sure how he's going to line them up, and are they going to be more attacking and things like that. So I did want to mention Etete, the 6 million striker at Cardiff. I thought he was just getting in a bit of rhythm, and then they've obviously signed Carl and Grant and Robinson, which was a bit disappointing because I thought he was starting to look good, but can't go there at the minute.
No. Right, okay, let's move on to the next team then. And Angus is going to talk us through Huddersfield. So last season they finished 18th. The bookies have gone down for 15th this season, coming in at around 12-1. Who gave us information, Angus?
So their handle is QCHAR.
QCHAR.
Yeah.
Right, okay. That's brilliant. Okay, we'll go straight into it. Key outgoings for Huddersfield this summer.
So I don't think they've given us sort of key outgoings. So I'm going to have to make it up off the top of my head. I can't even remember who they've lost. Have they lost anyone?
A couple of loans, Hungbo.
I'm just looking at their team now. I'm on the Gaffr side. It seems quite the same. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. This is really good.
I've just realised that it wasn't there. So apologies, but yeah, that's. I don't think there's been a great deal of turnover there, to be honest.
Okay, we'll go to key incomings.
Well, I think the only one when this was done, I don't know if they've brought anyone else in, but I think the only one was Chris Maxwell as a backup goalkeeper. Obviously, was at Blackpool last season, and I guess you could say the other one in terms of a quote unquote incoming was Sorba Thomas coming back from being on loan at Blackburn.
Yeah, they've got Tom Edwards on loan from Stoke as well.
Yes.
That was done yesterday, so that hasn't quite updated in the game yet, has it?
No.
Other than that, I can't recall seeing.
No, I think that was it. So it was just the goalkeepers and Thomas. So obviously add Edwards now, but yeah, so that's it so far.
What's the likely lineup or formation?
So they said if everyone is fit, that they did say they've got a friendly. We're recording on Friday. They've got a friendly on Saturday, which they were thinking would provide more of a clue. But they've said at the moment they think it will be in a 3. Trying to work it out. 3-4-3, I think. I'll work it out as I go through. They've listed players. So it's Nichols in goal.
Yeah.
Back three of Pearson, Hellick, and Lees.
Yeah.
They've then listed Headley and I'm struggling to read. And I think Nakayama.
Yeah.
Thomas. So they've got Rodoni, Kasumu, Thomas, Karoma, and then Ward. So, I'm
5-4-1.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
So that would be Thomas and Karoma on the wing, was it?
Yeah, I think it's Thomas and Karoma as either the support attackers, whether it's a 3-4-3 or a 5-4-1. It's Karoma and Thomas as the likely support attackers.
Okay, and where have they predicted Huddersfield to finish?
So they said that they're aiming for mid-table. They didn't give a precise sort of position, but said mid-table.
I think that's the most optimistic most Huddersfield fans would be, wouldn't it, after last year? Best Gaffr assets?
So they were very enthusiastic about Josh Koroma. Obviously, finished last season very well. At one point, he was quite a nice owner, and he's been on my radar as well. But and they said quite significantly Koroma over Thomas at this point as well, which I thought was interesting.
Okay, and the budget assets?
They said Diarra. They said he'll keep getting minutes, but if he becomes a starter, he could be a nice option in there. Obviously at 4.5.
Yeah, 4.5 midfield is always nice if they're playing. And then finally, under the radar assets?
So I think they said Pearson was the other one they mentioned, just because of his goal scoring abilities from set pieces.
I had him towards the end of the season for a goal. It must have been approaching their double or something for me to have him. But yeah, delightful. Dan, I'm going to come to you first while you've been waiting there. Very simple. Keepers, is it as straightforward as Nichols is going to be number one, Maxwell be backup?
Yeah, he has to be, surely. Nichols was one of the best goalies 2 years ago, and he obviously suffered that bad injury last year. But yeah, Nichols will be first choice.
Okay, and Angus, the defence then. So it looks like Lees, Pearson and Hellick, the 5 million defenders. They're your three centre-backs.
Yeah.
And then Headley and Nakayama, both 4.5. They're likely to be the wing-backs.
I think so. I think it could obviously be someone like Ruffles. So I think that might be a little bit of sort of to be confirmed, particularly on the right-hand side. But I know Headley came into the team under Warnock towards the end of the season and did quite well. I'm sure everyone will remember his... everyone who actually watched the Huddersfield game will remember him missing a wide-open goal.
Dan, you were shaking your head then. Are you on mute still?
Sorry, it cost me 150 quid. I had him anytime goal scorer.
Right, so just a quick question, Dan, about that defence then. So obviously the three centre-backs are 0.5 more expensive than the wing-backs. So if someone who doesn't follow the league as closely or they're just playing for the first time this year, would you say that the wing-backs are better value? Because we always say about full-backs and wing-backs. But is that the case here at Huddersfield?
I'm not sure. I think there's more rotation risks at the wing backs, whereas I'm pretty sure Lees, Pearson, and Hellick will be first choice. And it's just how many goals they score from set pieces. Pearson went on a record where he scored like 4 or 5 goals in as many games, didn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's guaranteed starts and just their ability to score from set pieces.
I think it was the Blackburn game. I remember it being a lunchtime kick-off on Sky. That's the only thing I can remember. Midfield, Angus. We'll start with Sorba, Thomas and Koroma. They both 6 million. Thomas obviously went on loan to Blackburn last season. He's come back. Those who have played Gaffr since the beginning will know Sorba Thomas as a very good point scorer in terms of creating chances. Do you think he could find his feet at Huddersfield again and become an asset?
Yeah, I certainly think so. Obviously, people will think with him back to 2 years ago, one of the big things with him was set pieces. So if he does come back and get on the set pieces again, that could obviously be very handy with him. But I think he left because of... I've already forgotten who the previous manager was, but he left because he wasn't in the plans of the previous manager. I think Warnock is certainly willing to use him again. Sort of now and reintegrate him, and he seems happy to sort of stick around. So I think he could well be an option.
Dan.
Fodringham.
That's him, yeah. Dan, Josh Koroma, he's 6 million as well. There was parts of last season, the season before where he was very good, and then for a lot of last season, he kind of just disappeared a little bit, let's say, and it looked like he was, he was going to
Well, he went on loan
down.
He went on loan to Portsmouth the first half, was he?
Yeah, and then he come back, didn't he? And he was not very good, let's say, but then it was like the last 7 games, maybe. I'm making that number up off the top of my head, but towards the end, he started to do well again. He's had a really good pre-season, scoring tons of goals against non-league clubs down in Cornwall, which has really impressed me. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's probably one of their best assets, isn't he? Especially going forward, and you always need to know cheap assets in Gaffr. Just feel like the difference boosts and things like that go on throughout the season. So Corona, we've seen him a couple of times in this league do really well over spells. So I wonder if he's a confidence player, and if that's the case, Warnock clearly loves him. So I think he could do well. And 6 million, very, very good price with a massive upside, I think.
How did he do at Portsmouth? Did he do anything down there?
No, I think he struggled down there, which is very weird.
Yeah. Rest of the midfield, you got Rodoni, Angus at 5.5. He's at that price point on his own. He's in my draft at the moment. He's impressed me in pre-season. He's likely to be on the bench. He's going to be the fourth midfielder, let's say. Do you think he's an option, or am I punting?
I'm not a fan personally. I like him as a player, but I think if he's deployed in that deeper role we saw last season, he did decently when he was playing sort of further forward. When he was playing in a deeper role, he can, as in on the pitch, he's fine. But in Gaffr, he's not really a factor if he plays in that deeper role, so that would concern me.
Okay. Dan, anything else from the midfield that stands out to you?
Well, as mentioned, Diarra could be
4.5.
one of the better 4.5s if he gets in. He looks a bit more attacking than your normal DMs. So, yeah, I definitely think Diarra could be an option.
And then up front, Angus, is there anything there for you? Ward's the most expensive at 6, so they're all very cheap.
No, I think one of the other things that was said was they are looking to bring in a striker. So that would potentially put me off any of the others. Rhodes has apparently been told he's free to sort of find a new club. And Hudlin apparently may well go out on loan, which is a shame because he was someone that I'd been looking at as a cheap striker.
So it could be a complete new strike force there then.
Yeah, so I think that's obviously at the moment you'd look at it and think Ward's going to play up front. We also know increasingly last year he had issues sort of staying fit. So I think that would be the other issue there. So I think at the moment they will be looking for a new striker.
Okay, and Dan, anything else you'd like to bring up about Huddersfield before we move on?
No, not really, to be honest.
Okay then, so the next scene then we're going to go to, Angus, you're going to talk us through Birmingham. So last season, finished 17th. The bookies have got them down for 17th again, coming in at around 16-1. And who's give you the information on Birmingham?
So that's Liam Hindley.
Jack.
And I've completely forgotten his handle.
BCFC _1975, I think it is, or something like that. If you type BCFC in and Liam, I'm sure he'll come up because he is quite active on Twitter talking about Birmingham assets. And considering they're signing a few players, he's very active this summer. We'll get straight into Birmingham then, Angus. Who were the key outgoings?
So the two main ones, obviously, Tahith Chong has gone to Luton, and Maxime Collin, pod favourite, who left on a free. I
think we're having some technical issues here. Angus, are you still there?
Are we?
Yes, so apologies for the technical issues, viewers. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back shortly. Hello, and we're back from our technical issues. Angus, key outgoings for Birmingham, please.
Didn't we just do key outgoings?
No, you went all funny.
So there was Chong to Luton and Collin on a free transfer. That's it.
Is it just them two?
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. And then key incomings.
So obviously they've got Ethan Laird in on a permanent transfer. Sariki Dembele. They've got Christian Bielik back on a permanent. They've got Dion Sanderson back on a permanent. They kept Kevin Long, who they brought in last season, and they've added Lee Buchanan, who was obviously previously in the league at Derby as well.
Yes. Have they signed Keshi Anderson? He was on trial, wasn't he?
That's a good question. I think they have.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know he was definitely on trial.
Yeah, they have.
Yes, they have. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so
but it wasn't listed as a key incoming, so clearly he's not key.
Okay. What's the likely lineup and formation then?
So he said a 4-3-3. He thinks Ruddy in goal, back four of Laird, Sanderson, Long, and originally it was Longello. Buchanan has come in since, and he thinks Buchanan will come in and start at left back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Midfield three of James, Bielik, and Bakuna. Roberts and Dembele in support of Hogan.
Okay, and where's he predicted Birmingham to finish?
10th to 13th.
I thought you were going to say 10th and higher then or something. I was going to say he's having a right laugh, Liam is. That's fair, I think. 10th to 13th is quite fair from Liam. Best assets?
So he said Laird and Ruddy.
Interesting. Budget assets?
James, who he listed starting midfield, who's a 4.5 midfielder.
I was looking at him this morning, you know.
And Bielik potentially at 5.
I wanted to make sure that James would actually start, so now I've heard that. That's quite a tempter, that is. And then under the radar, did I ever?
He's put Miyoshi, who I think was another new signing for them, or Tyler Roberts.
Right, okay. Let's dive into it. So let's go straight to, well, Roddy, is he nailed on to be starting keeper over Etheridge? Yeah, so he obviously scored a lot of points last year, but he comes in at 5 million. Right, Dan, talk me through this back four. So we're saying Laird at right back, he's coming in at 5.5. Buchanan, who hasn't been priced yet, but what's he going in at?
5.
He's going in at 5. And then who did we have at centre back? Sanderson and Long. So they are both coming in at 5. So there's no 4.5s in that. Do you think there's value in that defence, Dan?
Laird is one of these 5.5 wing backs that we've seen in the division before do well at Swansea and QPR. So I think if Birmingham are pretty solid, he could offer them a decent outlet on as a right back. But I am intrigued to see how attacking each of them are when you compare Laird and Buchanan, because if that 0.5 million, if they're doing pretty much the same thing, then you just take Buchanan for 0.5 less, don't you?
Yeah. Midfield, Angus. So who was it? We were saying Bielik, James, and Bakuna is the middle three.
Yeah.
Okay. Any value in any of them? You got Bakuna at 6, Bielik at 5, and then obviously James at 4.5. Do you think there's value in James there? Is it?
Absolutely. I mean, any starting 4.5 midfielder, I think, is going to provide some value. I mean, we've been talking about just having that person that you can have sit on your bench and know that they're going to turn up every game and be that sort of safety blanket if you need them. So I think someone like James, if he's going to play reliably, provides that quite nicely.
And who did he have on the wing? Roberts and Dembele?
Yeah.
Now, Roberts is at 6. Well, they're both at 6 million, actually. We know your thoughts on Roberts from his time at QPR, so let's not talk about him. Dembele, though, I want both your opinions on this because he interests me. I
think he's a very exciting player.
Yes.
Direct, makes things happen. Hasn't necessarily had a settled run in a team in the Championship yet, which has obviously been the main drawback for him.
Was he
But
only, did he only have half a season with Peterborough before Bournemouth?
yeah, but Bournemouth was in the division as well. It just he
In
didn't really
January,
settle in
yeah.
it just didn't really settle in their team either. But he did show what he was capable of in the division. He just didn't get a sustained run. So I think he could be interesting. It's more of a wait and see for me because I just want to see how Birmingham do. I am sort of quite encouraged by them, but I want to see exactly how they do, particularly before going into attacking assets from them.
Okay, Dan, what's your thoughts on Dembele?
Pretty much the same thing. Was a standout player at Peterborough, but he sort of fell out with them, didn't he? So he then went for a stage where he weren't playing or didn't want to play. And at Bournemouth, he had the odd game where he'd come on and do really well. But I think if he becomes the main man at Birmingham, I think he could be similar to Koroma and a nice option at 6 million.
Okay, and then up front, I was saying Hogan as the number one striker, 6.5, and then Big Duke as the backup at 5.5.
Yeah, I think that seems to be the idea there.
Okay, one last question I've got for you regarding Birmingham. Us three have spoke about it briefly in our group chat, but it's been about a week or so since we spoke about it. Birmingham's business, from the outside, people will be quite impressed. You know, there's quite a few signings that have come in, decent players as well. Are they right to be optimistic? Where do you predict them?
I think they have reason to be optimistic. I think they've done good business. We've obviously talked in our chat about they lost a few players who were obviously on loan, but I think particularly with the number of these players they've brought in that have been on permanent deals, it's obviously a big difference for them because it sets them up better, not just for this year, but going forward. Particularly having players like Ethan Laird on a permanent basis, that's obviously massive for them. Dion Sanderson, that sort of thing. So I think that's really positive for them. I was also talking to Liam briefly this evening as well, and they've got new owners who are also investing heavily in the stadium. So I don't know if people have seen before. They've had a lot of work on the stadium that's needed doing that hasn't been done.
Yeah,
They're doing loads of work on the stadium now. There's refurb on multiple stands, the away end, the standing area, all sorts. So I think it sounds like it's a period of time to really be excited about as a Birmingham fan, particularly when it's been, a bit shit recently with the team, the ownership, the stadium, all of it, and I think that is sort of turning around. I tend to agree. I think they might well end up in sort of mid-table, maybe lower mid-table, sort of 14th-ish, which I think for them would still be a good season. Particularly if they're not in any sort of danger of going down. So in general, yeah, I think that they have reasons to be positive at the moment.
Okay, and Dan, you?
Yeah, I'm a bit more cautious. I've been that way. I'm. It's all right signing all these players, and they are good players. And as Angus mentioned, they're permanently now. So long term, I see them progressing. It's been a bit of a joke. Birmingham. Well, we all thought they were going to get relegated last year.
I think we had them bottom, don't we?
Yeah, and they normally have finished about 17th to 20th for about 6 years or something. So I can see him finishing in a similar position, but I think maybe over the next 2 or 3 years, they have a platform to start progressing. So they're a wait and see. But if I was a fan, I'd be very excited, to be honest.
Brilliant. Right, let's go to our next team then. And it is Preston. Dan, you'll talk us through them. Last season they finished 12th. Bookers have gone down for 18th this season, coming in around 16-1. Who gives us the information on Preston?
Yeah, it's at Ben Wignall on Twitter.
Okay, and key outgoings? Who's gone?
He's put Daniel Johnson, obviously gone to Stoke, been there for a long time. And Josh Onoma as well. He was only there a little while, but he was one of their key outgoings.
Also looks like he's going to Stoke as well. Key incomings.
Calvin Ramsey, exciting right wing back on loan from Liverpool. Just coming back from an injury though, so it might be a phased in for a few weeks. They got Dwayne Holmes from Huddersfield, solid player in the Championship. Will Keane up front, who at times done all right at Wigan. And probably the big one, Mads Froje Jensen, who's an attacking mid who he looks pretty decent. He scored a couple of goals the other day. So yeah, some decent additions, some squad players as well.
Yeah, and the likely lineup and formation.
Yeah, so it's a 3-5-2 with obviously Freddie Woodman in goal. Obviously, eventually they think Ramsey will get in the side, but I think Potts will start there the season just because he's had a lot more game time. Brady at left wing back, Story, Lindsay, and Hughes as centre backs, with Whiteman as the DM, with Brown and Jensen as eights, with Reece Jacobson and Keane up front.
Nice. Okay, what prediction have they give Preston?
What position?
Yeah, league position, yeah.
Well, it's Preston, so they put 12.
That's the most Preston answer you
Yeah.
could give, 12. I love that. Best assets.
They've put a couple. Freddie Woodman, he done quite well, but it is a bit expensive. And Mads Froje Jensen,
He's 6 million, isn't he,
6
as
million.
midfielder.
Yeah.
Budget assets.
Ben Whiteman, he'll be on some set pieces. So I think we saw a few seasons ago he ticked over quite nicely.
And who is the under the radar assets?
He's put obviously Ramsey, I think, just because he's not really done it in England yet. So I think he's going to go a bit under the radar for Championship fans. But we saw last year their wing backs, especially on the left side, do very well. So I think if Ramsey gets a good run in the team, he could be a very good option.
Okay, right, let's get into the team then. I'm quite interested to talk about Preston for once. It's a goalie again. Woodman's number one, 5.5, really expensive, so most would avoid that. Defence, Angus. See, I know nothing about this Ramsey. I know you were big on him. You know, obviously watching the Scottish football as well. How good is he?
I think he's very encouraging. I think it's telling that he was in and around the first team squad for Liverpool. It wasn't sort of right. We're signing him to sort of go and slot in with the youth team. He was involved, which I think is telling, given that he's about to turn 20. So signing him in and as a teenager and having him in the first team squad sort of shows. I know he had some injury issues, but was a very nice asset. I played the Fantasy Scotland game 2 years ago. Didn't play last year, but 2 years ago when he was at Aberdeen, he was a very good asset there. Did quite well for them. So I'm hoping to see more of that. He's another one who likes to get forward. So I think he's well suited to a wing back system as well.
Nice, because I'd never heard of him, and I knew you were big on him. So when he come in at 5.5, I was like, oh wow, okay. But down the rest of the defence though, Story, Potts, Brady, and Ramsey are all 5.5. Cunningham, Hughes, Bauer, Lindsay, and Diaby are all 5. So they've been priced quite well. Why is that, Dan?
Well, they went through that crazy stage at the start of the season where they drew 0-0 every
Yeah,
game.
what was it, about 9 games?
It was crazy. To be fair, they did score 1 goal. Brad Potts against Luton.
Yes.
1-0 win.
Wasn't that a very good goal as well? If I remember.
Yeah, it was like a flying super gig.
Yeah. So, obviously, they've been priced quite high, really, for Preston, but they did do well. Do you think there's any of them are worth it over other players in the league?
I think we saw Brady do quite well last year, especially at the start. He was getting 3 or 4 bonus every week because he was on some set pieces as well as Whiteman. So yeah, I think early on, when there's not as many 3-game weeks, Brady could be an option while we get the uncertainty of Potts and Ramsey.
Okay, midfield, Angus. Obviously, Frockier Jensen, he's come into the league. We're not too familiar with him, but he's the highest priced midfielder at 6. Is there any value in that midfield?
I think him.
Yeah. Did he score 2 the other day in pre-season, was it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think at least one of them was a banger, which always helps to build the hype.
Always.
But he seems to be a midfielder who likes to get forward and has an eye for goal, which obviously helps in any team, but particularly when he's at 6 million. If he does sort of adjust to the division well, that's obviously a great price.
Yeah. And what about like Brown or Whiteman? Because Dan's mentioned Whiteman a few times. He picked up a bit of bonus last year, didn't he? I remember when a few people had him. Is he on your watch list?
No. I know we talk about set pieces and potentially key passes or whatever. I don't want to pick at someone who's only going to return from that. He's a defensive midfielder, really. I don't really want to be signing up for that. So he won't be for me.
Okay, and Dan, I'm going to come to you regarding the forwards. Reece, 7 million. Is he fit?
Oh, I'm not
so.
sure.
I haven't made an injury up for him.
I mean, he was injured.
He was seriously injured last year.
Yeah,
Phil, while I look it up.
So obviously, Dan, Reece comes in at 7 million. You got Keane, who's coming from Wigan. He's 6 million. Evans, I believe, is potentially not going to play again. He's 5.5. Is that right? Or am I just making random stuff up at the moment?
No, there are questions
neck
about
injury.
Whether Ched Evans is going to play again. There was a serious either back or neck injury, so there are questions about it. I think he may well come. Like, there's a chance. I'm going to say there's a chance because I haven't heard anything specific, but there's a chance he does come back. But they were also entertaining the idea he might not play again.
Okay, so at least I'm not completely stupid. That is good news. Reece at 7 million, Dan, if he's fit. When he first came, he had a really good start to his career at Preston. I quite like him. Do you think he could be an option at 7?
It's hard, isn't it? We need to see him after this long-term injury, but you're right. He got close to 20 goals, didn't he? Not last season, the season before. So he's a wait and see. It's unfortunate because they got quite a nice run of fixtures to start off with, but yeah, you need to see him after that long-term injury, I think.
And what about Keane? Because I liked Keane last year at Wigan. I think he's very good at playing as that number 10 in a way and arriving into the box quite late because he's quite good in the air as well. Do you think he could potentially be an option? Is he likely to start a lot for Preston?
I think he'll start. It's just he's in that same price as Broadhead and Semedo, so I think he's a few down the pecking order, to be honest.
But you think he's going to start, though?
Yeah, I think he'll start.
Okay, that's interesting. Angus, I can't even remember what I asked you to look at now.
I haven't found any record, at least in the last 2 friendlies, of Emil Reece being involved. So I'm going to assume for the moment, until further notice, he's not back.
Right. Okay. So, do you think that leaves Keane to play up front, or are they likely to bring anyone else in with the potential of Evans not being there?
I know they've been linked with bringing Tom Cannon back to the club.
Yes.
Which would obviously, I think that would be a good move. But I know there are quite a few clubs after him. But But whether he sort of, wants to go back to Preston, I think he quite enjoyed his time there, second half of last season. I don't know, but so that would suggest they are looking to bring somebody else in at the position.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to cover on Preston before we move on?
No.
Don't think so.
Okay then, so we're going to go on to Swansea, and Angus will take us through them. Last season they finished 10th. Bookies have them down for 13th this season, coming in at around 9-1. Who's provided the information, Angus?
So it's Carl JB. I think it's Carl Coote on Twitter.
Yeah, okay, so key outgoings.
He's got Russell Martin, obviously, as the manager. Ryan Manning, Joel Latibodia, and Morgan Whittaker.
And the key incomings?
So obviously Michael Duff as the new manager. He's also said Margetson, who's the goalkeeper and set piece coach. Board level investment.
What price are they?
Yeah.
What price? What price are they?
I think it's a 4.5 mid. Janelli, Key, and Yates, with others potentially to come.
Okay, and the likely lineup / formation.
So he's put 3-5-2.
Yep.
He's put Fisher in goal, Darling, Cabango, and Wood as the back three.
Yeah.
So he's put Key and Norton as the wing backs at the moment.
Okay.
Grimes to sit deeper.
Yeah.
Two of Fulton and Cham and Janelli. Fulton and Cham, Janelli, Cooper, and Patterson.
Okay, so there's a lot of options there, really, for
Yeah.
two positions. Yeah.
But I think that's the area of uncertainty, and then Pirro and Yates up top.
Okay, interesting. And what position does he think they'll finish?
He's just put mid-table.
Mid-table again. Okay. Best asset?
So it's Key.
Josh Key.
Yeah. So Key is the key asset. So he said the wing backs could obviously be good. He's put a couple of the midfielders in Fulton and Grimes. And then he's put Jerry Yates as well. I think that's combining all of the asset takes. So, but I think the main asset I think he said is Key.
Right. Okay, and that was combining the budget and under the radar, or?
Yeah, I think because he's just listed them under assets. So.
Okay, not a problem. Right, we'll get into the team then. So, Fisher and goal 4.5. If you're going down that to 4.5 keeper's route, do you think he's an option?
Yeah, so obviously I've been on the 2 4.5s, and he was the second one for me. So yeah, I think he's potentially an option. I did sort of criticise him last season. There are times where it looked like he didn't realise he could use his hands, but he's at 4.5. There's only so much you're expecting at that price.
Yeah. Defence, Dan. You got Wood at 5 million. So it's Wood Gordon on the game, but it says Wood, and it proper confuses me every time I look. I can't get over it. But Wood, Cabango, and Darwin are all at 5. But it's interesting that he has the wing backs as Key, who's 5 million, and Norton at 4.5. Who's your favourite one to look at there?
Josh Key for me.
Yeah.
I think he done quite well in League One. I know Luton were after him if we didn't get promoted, so
he's amazing.
Well, we're quite good at picking wing backs, as we discovered yesterday on Planet FBL. So yeah, he would definitely be on my radar. And I think you've got to remember this isn't a Martin side, so they should probably be a bit better defensively because they won't be asked to play suicide passing constantly. So I think Key could be one of those, probably underpriced. I think by the end of the season, I think he probably could have been 5.5. I think.
Okay, midfield, Angus, seems to be a bit of a minefield. You just avoid it because there's so much uncertainty there. Do you agree?
Yeah, so in terms of a couple of notes Carl had given on the midfielder, so he said with Fulton, he's only 5 million, and if he is regular, it looks like he'll play as more of a box-to-box midfielder.
Okay.
So obviously, in a team like that, as a 5 million, that could obviously be an asset. But he said the issue is the competition for places. And then he said Grimes is looking to play the ball forward a bit more, which I guess with the change in style makes sense, and could be getting a lot more sort of assists that way, and is on free kicks and corners. And he's the one that's nailed. I think he falls into a similar bracket I was saying to Whiteman, where personally I think he's probably playing too deep for me to go there, even though he's on the set pieces. But I don't hate him as an option.
Okay, and then forwards, Dan. We all know about Joe Pro, 10 million, brilliant. But Yates has joined from Blackpool. He's coming in at 7.5. Is there would you say there's an option to go Yates over Perel to save the money, save 2.5?
Yeah, I think so. There's been that speculation that all the relegated clubs are after Piero, and you get the feeling that if one of those relegated clubs start badly, they're just going to panic and sign him for. I think they're wanting about 15 million or something for him. So it seems quite a lot, but what's he got? 40, 41 goals in 2 seasons at the level. He's basically proven Piero. So Yates done quite well in a Blackpool side as well. He got double figures. So I think at 7.5, and he's the main man in the Swansea side. I think that could be decent value.
Angus, do you agree? Do you think you could save the 2.5 there if you wanted a Swansea forward?
I think so. I'm a big fan of Jerry Yates. I think he's a good player. I also think the fact he got 14 goals in addition to 4 assists in that Blackpool team last year is a fucking miracle. So I've got to give him the credit for that as well. But so I think I also think both of them could actually benefit from the other. If Piero does stay and it's those two up top, I think they both sort of make each other better as well. So I think Yates could well be worth the saving at that point.
Okay. Anything else from Swansea before we move on to the last 2 teams?
So just wanted to mention briefly, obviously Carl mentioned the set piece coach. It doesn't seem to be something Swansea have been working with previously, which says a lot, I guess. But I think he's the set piece coach under Steve Cooper when they had him.
Okay.
So that could actually be a very valuable addition to them, particularly if you're looking at someone like Grimes who takes the set pieces or some of the big lumps from the back.
Lovely. Right, let's move on then to the last 2 teams. Dan, you're going to take us through West Brom. They finished 9th last season. Bookies have them down for 8th, coming in at around 5-1. So who provided you with the information?
Tom FF on Twitter.
The Gaffr
he
thread
does all
guy.
Yeah.
He loves the thread, yeah, Tom.
Yeah.
What's the key outgoings then that Tom's give you?
So Grant to Cardiff, Carl Grant to Cardiff on loan. O'Shea has gone to Burnley.
Oh yeah.
And there's rumours Chalobah and Diangana also leaving, but nothing concrete.
Okay.
I think I saw Leicester interested in Diangana today.
Oh wow, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
What about incomings?
They've just made one a couple of days ago. I'm trying to think of his name.
Sarmiento,
yeah, he's on loan for Brighton, so he must be good. Yeah, I think he can play anywhere behind the striker, so could be interesting. He's going to be in the game at 8 million.
Interesting. Are there any other key incomings?
No, that's the only one so far. They're struggling financially.
Yeah.
They've run out of parachute payments, and I don't think they're in a great position, so they might have to sell some more players.
Okay, what's the likely lineup then in formation?
Yeah, so Palmer in goal, Furlong right back, Townsend left back. He seems a bit unsure about the centre backs. He's put down four: Kipre, Ajay, Bartley, and young Taylor, who's not in the game currently. Um, he's then got Malumbe and Yukashlu as two sitters, with Wallace on the right, Swift on the left, and I did check with him. He thinks Sarmiento will play. Swift in the middle and Sarmiento on the left,
Okay.
with Asante up front, Thomas Asante up front, because obviously DK's injured.
And where's Tom got West Brom to finish?
He's got them to finish. Their aim will be top six, which I think's probably a bit optimistic, to be honest, with what's going on in the background. But they've got some good championship players, especially in that first 11.
Yeah, potentially. Best Gaffr asset.
He's put Jed Wallace, which is interesting because we've changed more to Swift recently, but he doesn't think Swift is as nailed or could move a bit deeper, which I can sort of understand. And we saw last year Wallace just kept on putting in crosses. So if someone ends up getting on the end of the crosses, he might actually do quite well this year.
Okay. Budget assets.
Budget. He's not really done a budget asset or under the radar, but he has mentioned Connor Townsend as just a solid pick, which at 6.5 he'll play every game if he's fit. So I can understand that.
Right, let's break the team down then. This should be quite easy because it hasn't really changed from last year. So, obviously Palmer's going to be in goal. What I found interesting then in this predicted 11, you mentioned everyone, but there was no mention of Eric Peters, was there?
No,
No, so he doesn't think he'll be involved.
that's what he said. So I did find that a bit surprising, to be honest.
Yeah, and Angus, obviously, the pod with Luke the other week, he did talk about Townsend and Furlong, and saying that Furlong was quite unlucky compared to his X whatever numbers he was on about. Do you think Townsend's worth the 0.5 more than Furlong still?
Yes, for me, yes. Even though Furlong was unlucky, I think there is something in the fact that Townsend was producing more and has shown himself to be a more reliable sort of asset. Over the last couple of years. So I'd probably be paying the extra for Townsend. Yeah.
Okay, midfielders done. You just briefly spoke about Swift. So you got Swift and Wallace, and what was the guy from Brighton's name?
Sarmiento.
Sarmiento. So those two are at 10. Sarmiento's in at 8. That's likely to be the three behind Thomas Asante. Is there any preference on them, or are you even considering any of them?
Currently, no. I know why Swift and Wallace are priced up there. They're Gaffr legends. They tick over the points. We've seen it for a number of years now. Sarmiento is of interest if he settles in at 8 million. It's a 2 million saving, so he could be of interest. But I'm sure I'll end up falling into the trap like I always do and end up with somehow double West Brom attack. But we'll own them at some point. It's just not at the minute when you've got to try and fit in a premium striker and maybe Ward Prowse and players like that.
Yeah, and they do have Leeds and Middlesbrough in the first four after going to
Yeah.
Blackburn and playing Swansea at home. Thomas Asante, Angus, did well in spells last year, I thought. It's the first time I've really seen him play properly last season. Quite impressed by him. Do you think he could kick on this season and be their talisman? Because I worry about DK's injury record.
I think he's going to have to be, just because of that injury record for DK. I think Thomas Asante is going to have to step up his sort of goal scoring record. I think he's potentially capable of it, but I'd probably want to see it a little bit before I went with him in terms of Gaffr.
Okay, last question for both of you. Tom's predicts them finished in the playoffs. West Brom will always get brought up to be up there, similar to how Stoke do, just because of their name within the Championship. How do you think they'll fare next year? Because I'm quite worried about them. I can't see them competing.
I think one of the key things, and obviously it's difficult to put a lot on individual players, but one of the key things I've seen about Jeremy Sarmiento is obviously very exciting, is I'm already seeing the words, if he can stay fit.
And that's not what you want to see, is he, before he's even played a game?
No, but it's the sort of thing that could be the key difference maker, because someone like that, who's clearly very exciting, very productive, potentially, obviously, a real talent. Obviously, Brighton have kept him on their books and everything. He could be like amazing at the level if he stays fit. And we see it with some of these guys where previously guys who've struggled with injury, if they stay fit for a full season, they can have incredible years. And so I think it could depend on as little as whether he stays fit or not. If he stays fit, all of a sudden, he's the missing piece. And all of a sudden they're pushing for top six. If he's injured, could they finish as low as like 14th? Possibly.
Dan, you mentioned about, they've got financial issues, so they're not likely to bring in a lot of players. I worry about a few injuries and then the depth, because I'm looking at that defence. Full back, they're quite light, so that would worry me if Furlong or Townsend got injured. In midfield, Dean Garner's never produced that form since that season when him and Pereira were there. He's never really been the same player. Phillips, I'm not a massive fan of. Mowatt's gone back, I suppose, and you got Gardner Hickman. But then DK's your backup striker to Thomas Asante. So, would you worry about that?
I think so. For me, they've got a very good maybe 13, 14, but if they get like Thomas Asante injured, who's going to play up front?
Adam Reach.
Sorry?
Adam Reach.
I think what you might find is they might have a few youngsters that get a few minutes. I think.
I think they've let one of their better ones go. I think I saw the fans were pretty annoyed about it. Zach Ashworth.
Oh yeah.
Who I think was in some squads last season. I think he's gone on loan to Bolton with an option to buy. I know the fans were very annoyed about that. So even that might be a little bit thinner than we think.
I think what's a good thing for us from a Gaffr point of view is they've got them 2 tough fixtures, so we're likely to not go in there at them prices. Have a good look at them. Then when we come into September, if they're there, we take up the options, don't we? But let's move on to the last team then of this part. And Angus, you're going to take us through Middlesbrough. So last season they finished 4th. Bookies have gone down for 4th again, coming in at 11-4. Who's give us the information for Middlesbrough?
So it's Dana from the Borough Breakdown podcast.
Okay. Any key outgoings from Borough?
So they put Archer and Giles. It's obviously the starting point. 2 guys dead on loan last season. I think Luton are very inconsiderate to deprive us of Giles in the division this season. They should think about the greater good and what we need in Gaffr, not what they need. Be a bit less selfish.
Yes, I agree.
Archer, obviously, it looks like he's going to stay at Villa this season. He's not going to go out on loan. So, I think there was some small hope that he might even end up back at Borough, but that's not going to happen. Also mentioned Aaron Ramsey. Not that Aaron Ramsey, the other Aaron Ramsey, who obviously did well for them last year, who was also on loan from Villa. So I think those are the main outgoings.
That's the problem when you have a group of loan players who were very good. I remember Swansea a couple of years ago; they just missed out on promotion, and then I think Freddie Woodman was there once. He was out of contract, and when you lose a chunk of your team who are so talented, it's a massive blow, I think. But who've they managed to bring in?
So they've listed the key incoming as Seny Dieng, is obviously coming in goal. We've talked about him a lot in goal. They had Zach Steffen on loan last season. I think he suited the style theoretically they wanted to play in terms of playing out from the back. I think there were always questions about his shot stopping, which I think Dieng should shore up a little bit. They brought in another goalkeeper, Tom Glover. Brought in, just trying to go through, Vandenberg, centre back, brother of Sepp Vandenberg, who was previously on loan at Preston from Liverpool. They brought in Morgan Rogers from Manchester City, was on loan at Blackpool last season and has previously been on loan, I think, at Bournemouth, where he famously basically didn't play under, Scott Parker. I'm going to include that Martin Pajero is back from his loan at Barca Juniors. And Carrick is talking like he's going to be involved in the squad. So that's potential. That's going to be the famous football words, like a new signing. Yeah. Sammy Silvera, winger who's come in from Australia. And Alex Gilbert, who they signed from Brentford B.
Okay. What's the likely lineup / formation?
So she put it's 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
So Dieng in goal.
Yeah.
She put Vandenberg is likely to start the season at right back because Smith and Dijksteel are both injured at the moment.
Okay.
Fry and Lenihan centre back, with Coulson at left back, Hackney and Howson in midfield. Fors, Akpom and McGree behind Rogers.
Interesting. Okay. Where have they predicted them to finish?
Second.
Oh, very interesting. Someone back in the team to go up. Best Gaffr assets.
So the first sentence, definitely not Akpom right now. So she said he's been injured for most of pre-season, which may affect the start of his campaign, either in terms of availability, form, or both. I'd say there's good value in Marcus Fors. He's in my team because I think he'll soon be played through the middle. And if so, I believe he could be our near 20-goal man next season.
So if anybody saw my draft on Twitter today and was wondering why I had Force up front, I was the one who got the information from Brother Breakdown on this. I saw that and my eyes lit up and I thought, that's a punt I want to go on. That's what I needed.
Yeah, so we've talked about Marcus Fors before. I would say his numbers when he played in the Championship at Brentford were incredible. And so I think if he gets a regular run through the middle, particularly, let's say, if it's like, Jones, Akpom, and whether it's McCree, Silvera, Rogers behind him as well, that sounds like a very dynamic attack all over again.
Indeed. Budget asset, Angus.
So she said, nobody strikes me as underpriced per se, but while Borough haven't yet made a left-back signing, Hayden Coulson could be a good short-term pick. He's more creative than sort of defensively astute, and he could have a redemption season with Jonathan Woodgate a part of the coaching staff again. Apparently Woodgate's a big fan of him and was first responsible for integrating him into the first team. So he could be a good budget option to start off with.
Yeah, because he's 4.5 million, isn't he?
Yeah.
Brilliant. And then under the radar assets?
Sammy Silvera. So saying he's the type of player that looks to cut inside and shoot. He has a decent shot on him too, so there's potential there. If Fors moves central, I suspect it's Silvera who might benefit from the switch. However, if Fors remains on the right, it's likely to be Rogers up front with Silvera bench. And Rodgers has got himself into some good positions in pre-season, but has perhaps been guilty of not being ruthless enough in front of goal. If that clicks, though, Rodgers could be worth keeping an eye on.
Very interesting. Right, let's break down the team. Excuse the pun from Borough Breakdown. So, the first one is the obvious one. Dieng's gone there, 4.5
Yeah.
keeper. Everybody's going to have him, so let's not talk about that. Defence, because it's quite interesting. She's saying
It's a bit of a mess, isn't it?
Yeah, could play left back. Smith is injured, which means... Did you say Vandenberg is a centre-back?
Primarily a centre-back, yeah.
Now, my concern here is, Angus, is you haven't mentioned Jones. So he'd be my instant thought if Smith's injured. Isaiah Jones will play right back.
In theory, but I think Carrick seems to be very committed to the idea of using him further up the pitch. He's not a right back. I mean, he was barely a right wing back because he's a winger.
Yeah.
And I think he played right wing back like a winger, which is fine, particularly in that Chris Wilder system. But I don't think he's really cut out to play that orthodox right back. And to be honest, when you think about the way Tommy Smith plays right back, you can probably get away with a centre back doing what he does.
Yeah, to be fair, I think you're right there. So that's your full-backs. And was it Lenihan and Fry as your centre-backs there? So they're both 5.5, so that's quite off-putting at that price, really. So Dan, would you take a gamble on Coulson? Because that seems to be the best option out of them, but I'm not big on it myself.
It's just a transfer waiting to happen, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's not going to be first choice. Well, or if he is, by the end the window shuts, he's not going to be first choice, is he? I doubt it.
No, my luck, I'd have him, and then they'd sign someone on the Friday night straight after the deadline. So, yeah, I agree. I think that is a transfer waiting to happen.
I think there's something else worth saying just quickly on that as well, in terms of the 4 fixtures before the window closes. Which obviously you could be replacing him at any moment at that point. But in terms of going without, they play Millwall, Coventry, Huddersfield and West Brom. Now, obviously, the Huddersfield fixture is quite nice, and a couple of those not so bad. But in terms of fixtures that you could go without and wait and see whether he's still the option, those also aren't the best fixtures. So it might well be that you can actually just, then if he's still there and the left back after those, yeah, sure, go into him.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Plus, as well, most are going to have Dieng in goal. So you've got that defensive coverage anyway. So going the double doesn't really seem appealing to me. Midfield then. So what was the midfield looking like, Angus?
I think it was Hackney and Howson as the 2.
Yeah.
And then I think primarily it was going to be Fours, Akpom and McGree behind Rodgers.
So that's quite interesting. And after this, Force could potentially play through the middle. Silvera on the right, he's the new signing. And if Akpom's not, this is a bit of a mess of Borough, and it's not really ideal because a Borough team, you really, you know them from last season, you know what they can do, but I don't really feel comfortable jumping on any of them midfielders. Do you two?
Well, I've got one in my team at the moment.
So go on to counter argument then. Go on.
So everyone's going to assume it's Isaiah Jones because if there's someone who's been guilty of hyping him up for 2 years, it's me. It's not him. Basically, from one of the first friendlies I saw, with their lineup and everything, Morgan Rodgers was up front, 6.5 mid, playing up front for Borough. If he keeps that place,
but Dennis,
that's
he's
not
got
bad.
start
Scoring,
yeah.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. It's a good starting point having a 6.5 mid that's playing up front for Borough. He obviously needs to do the goals, but that he's tempting at 6.5 for that reason. That he's currently lining up to be the starting striker.
It's interesting. We've gone very different ways for the same reason.
Yeah.
We're both looking for that centre forward for Middlesbrough, but we've gone from 2 different directions, so that is quite interesting. Dan, are you on any at the moment?
Just the Yang. I'm not on anyone. I looked at the fixtures, and to be honest, I've been a bit blind on Borough. I just think they've lost too many key players, and Akpon injured. I want to see how it all settles down, and I think with the fixtures, I can do that. I think I would lean for Force just because I think he either plays right wing or he plays up front. If I was going to go for one.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference. There's 1.5 million difference in price as well. I'm paying 8 million for Force as a forwards, using my forward slot, where Angus is paying 6.5 for a midfielder in a way. So it's interesting. I think it's interesting that all three of us are completely different on it. So that probably doesn't help the listeners or the viewers, but it just shows you uncertainty and where you can potentially just ignore it for now and then just see what develops, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, A, I read out those fixtures. It's easily avoidable. B, I would say, to be honest, I'm more likely come next week, if I have a Borough attacking player, for it to be Fours than still be Rodgers.
I don't want
Also,
anybody else to have Force.
They did score 80 odd goals as well, so they were better going forward. So it might just be.
Like, I'm not concerned about their fixtures really. Like, as in, there's a little bit of uncertainty to start, but the number of fixtures we saw last season with much the same team. Like, obviously, there's a couple of key players not there, but much the same team under Carrick. Like, fixtures that we thought would be difficult, and they're going and tearing teams apart. So I do think there's potentially options for them to be fixture proof in attack. It's just nailing down who those starting attackers are going to be. Once we have clarity on that, I'll quite happily go in.
Okay. Is there anything else that either of you would like to add on Middlesbrough before we wrap up? No?
I don't think so. Mainly just, I think, as they suggested, look out for the potential incomings. They were obviously in for Giles. And I think that who they pivot to at the left-back position, that could obviously... it affects Coulson, but if it's anything like Giles last season, they could obviously become a phenomenal asset very quickly.
Okay, interesting. Well, that's a wrap-up then of part 2. Is there anything you'd like to just mention in general before we do actually go?
No.
No? Okay, so part 1 should be out if you're listening to this now. Part 3 should be out very shortly after this one. We are going to record that on Sunday night, the 30th, for release on Monday, I believe, Angus?
Ideally Sunday night, but
yeah,
it can take a little while to upload, so it might be Monday morning.
Okay, so that should be out then. We've already discussed we'll be doing the spaces on Friday. So in the meantime, if you like this video, this podcast, if you're listening on the audio, please give it a share, a like. It helps us grow and help us make people
5 stars on Spotify, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. Give us great ratings. I think we've got like 1 Spotify rating, which is 5 stars, but we'd like more.
Is that it?
Was that for you?
You shady bastards, a lot of you listen to it every week and they even do that. Yeah, give 5 stars and then share on Twitter, wherever, even if it's someone saying, quote tweet it saying, look at these 3 dickheads talking about the championship. We don't mind.
Even if you say what we're saying is stupid, I'd like more people to come and listen to it so they can tell whether we're being stupid.
Any publicity is good publicity, Angus. We won't be famous.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, I can't be arsed work anymore because I've had enough of it. I'm only 31, but I really can't be arsed to another 30 odd years. So the plan is talk shite about championship, get rich. Hopefully the Saudis will come in. Should we say that because it might annoy some people? I'm doing cat.
Patron. Just it. We're popular enough to start a mega money patron.
Yeah, Angus's injury shit behind a paywall. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
If you don't give us 5 stars, we're going to do that.
Yeah, and once it is behind a paywall, once we make enough money, me and Jamie are going to watch Into Miami instead of doing the content.
Yeah, and Sergio Busquets is going to get a restraining order on me. Right, let's wrap it up. Do give us a like and all that thing. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.